You're standing in an open field. The grass moves in slow waves, brushing against your boots. It smells like rain, and wildflowers, and something else. Old gunpowder. Like a memory the land refuses to forget. People say the battle ended here in 1863, in that July. But if you stay after dark, you realize something. In Gettysburg, the war never really ended. It just changed the way that it screams. Welcome back to That Haunted Show. And today, we walk into one of the most haunted places in America. Not a single house, not a single room, but an entire town and the fields around it. And we're going to see why they say it's haunted. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. A place where the dead still march and the living still listen. It's just before sunrise. Fog sits low over the rolling hills, pulled tight like a blanket over the dead. If you visit in the early morning, the battlefield feels almost peaceful. You see the cannons first, cast iron, black with age, pointing at nothing. Monuments of stone and bronze stand watch on the ridges, each one a reminder that someone died right here. 51,000 men were killed, wounded, or went missing in just those 3 days. 3 days that shook a country and left something behind. The park brochures talk about history, tactics, casualty numbers. They don't talk about what happens when the sun goes down. Climb the rocky slope of Little Round Top, and you're standing on one of the most important positions in the battle. Union soldiers clung to this hill, outnumbered and exhausted, firing down into waves of gray uniforms, pushing up through the trees. Today, tourists bring cameras and bottled water. They read plaques. They pose on the rocks. But not everyone who comes here is alive. Rangers and visitors talk about men in faded blue uniforms appearing out of the mist. Not costumes, not reenactors. These soldiers don't smile, don't ask for photos. They just rush past you, shouting, muskets in hand, charging towards an enemy only they can see. One story tells of a group of modern soldiers training nearby who hiked Little Round Top late in the day. An older man in a worn Union uniform appeared beside them, breathless, pressing cartridges into their hands. "Hold the line," he said. "They're coming." The group laughed, thinking he was part of a park program. The cartridges in their palms were paper-wrapped Civil War-style rounds. Primitive, dirty. When they looked up to thank the man, he was gone. Later, when they showed the packets to the park historian, he told them that those rounds hadn't been used in over a century. Leave the open fields and walk into town. Past gift shops and restaurants, down quiet side streets. There's a brick building that used to be known as the National Homestead Orphanage. After the battle, it housed children who lost their fathers here. They lived under a roof built on grief. The stories from this place aren't about soldiers. They're about the ones left behind. Visitors on tours talk about the sound of small feet running on the upper floors when no one's up there. Soft crying in empty rooms. Doors that close by themselves with the slow, deliberate push of an unseen hand. But the basement is where it's worst. Guides lead people down the deep, narrow stairs into a low, damp room. It's said that one of the matrons here punished children by locking them in the basement, sometimes for hours, sometimes overnight. Today, when the lights are turned off, guests feel fingers brushing their sleeves. small hands clutching at them in the dark. Some say they can hear scratching on the wooden door, like someone's still trying to get out. There's a common report: a boy, maybe 8 or 9, standing in the far corner, half lost in shadow. He looks dirty, tired, his eyes wide. If you blink, he's gone. But the cold he could leave clings to your skin like damp cloth. Also known as Stick Boy. Feel free to do some research on that. It's a very sad story. Drive a little way out, and the land changes. The hills break into jagged rock formations and scrub. Locals call this place the Devil's Den. It's a maze of boulders, crevices, and stone ledges. During the battle, it became a perfect killing ground. Sharpshooters used the rocks as cover, picking off soldiers on the fields below. After the fighting stopped, the photographers came. Their glass plates captured bodies all over the same rocks, arms twisted, eyes open, faces set in expressions of shock and defiance. Those photos become infamous. But some people think the dead didn't appreciate becoming part of the gallery. Visitors still see men lounging in the rocks, where the old photographs were staged. Not reenactors. Their uniforms look worn in strange ways, their faces strangely still. If you look away for a second and look back, they've moved or just vanished. Cameras misfire here. Batteries drain. People capture strange shadows, faces peering from cracks in the rocks, glowing orbs hovering above the boulders. Then there's the feeling. Many people describe the sense of being watched, not just by one pair of eyes, but dozens, judging, measuring, as if the sharpshooters are still lining up their shots, and you're walking right through their sights. I've been to this place, and have a spooky story that I can add to it in the description. But essentially, I was with a group of friends, and we were pacing, going ghost hunting at the Devil's Den, and marching, when the marching became amplified and louder, and it sounded like a fleet of people around us, and it absolutely terrified me. In some haunted places, you get individual ghosts. A woman in white, a man on the stairs. Gettysburg is different. Here, an entire moment seems trapped, replaying again and again. Residents tell stories of hearing volleys of gunfire in the middle of the still summer night. They rush outside, and the sky is clear, the roads empty. But somewhere out over the fields, they hear it. The boom of artillery, the crack of rifles, and the screams. There are reports of phantom drums, a steady thump of marching cadence echoing down empty roads. On hot July nights, especially near the battle's anniversary, some people see fog rolling in fast over the fields when the weather report promised clear skies. In that fog, shapes move, columns of men marching silently. Their uniforms are wrong for the 21st century. Their faces are gray, like they've been carved out of ash. And if you get any closer, the fog swallows them. Sometimes, people say the land itself seems to shudder, as if the earth remembers the weight of 1,000 boots, thousands of bodies falling, and tries to warn you. This is not just a park. It's a grave that never fully closed. For the people who live in Gettysburg, the paranormal is almost ordinary. It's background noise. Some shop owners say they hear footsteps upstairs after closing, even in buildings where the upper floors are empty. One innkeeper tells of a soldier in a worn uniform who appears in the hallway, hat in hand, as if looking for a room that no longer exists. Lights flick on and off, pictures tilt, voices drift through locked rooms. Most of the time, the locals just accept it. You can't live here without making some kind of peace with the dead. But there's a difference between living beside history and living surrounded by it. In Gettysburg, you don't just remember the past, you hear it. You feel it brushing against your arm in an empty room. You see it standing at the foot of your bed, staring at you with eyes that died more than a century ago. It's an absolutely beautiful place. I've gone twice a year for the last 10 years. And I always catch something, whether it's an EVP or a photograph of what I assume to be an orb or a ghost. If you want to test your courage, go to Cemetery Ridge before a summer storm. The sky goes dark in strange bruised colors. The air gets heavy. The wind pushes the grass flat like invisible hands sweeping the field. This is where Pickett's charge happened. A desperate Confederate assault that sent men marching across open ground into a storm of Union fire. Many didn't make it halfway. Now, people say that when thunder rolls over Cemetery Ridge, you can sometimes hear something else layered in the sound. Orders being shouted, men crying out, the crackling of rifles. Some visitors report hearing a sudden, sharp command, clear as if someone shouted in their ear, "Fix bayonets!" They turn, expecting to see a reenactor, but there's no one there. Just the wind. And the feeling that if you step 1 foot too far into that open field, you might find yourself walking alongside men who never made it back. Gettysburg is a lesson carved into the land with blood. A moment when a nation nearly tore apart itself and tried to stitch itself back together on a hill of bodies. Most wars end when the guns fall silent, when the treaties are signed, or when uniforms are folded and put away. But here, you get the sense that part of the battle is still going on. Men still charging, still defending, still trying to follow orders that no longer matter. Maybe the dead remain because their stories are too big to fit in textbooks and museums. Maybe they march because they don't know how to stop. Or maybe, in a place like Gettysburg, the past is simply too loud to stay buried. This has been Gettysburg, the war that wouldn't die. On the next episode of That Haunted Show, we'll visit another place where history refuses to rest. And until then, if you ever walk the fields of Gettysburg as the sun goes down, and you hear the drums in the distance, don't worry. They're not calling for you. Not yet, at least. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.